Guys, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know. Like a motherfucking smack addict. Bye up, bye up. And in Menudo style in direct fashion, we're going to get straight into the content of the day. But before we do, let's hit that like and subscribe button thing. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directing the direction of the dope content I am kicking. And I highly appreciate all the support, man. We're going up on this channel. It's all because of you. And for that, I can say I'm very humbled and I'm very much so appreciative. So I've been asked a question a lot. And the question is sometimes I can say it's difficult to answer just because I don't want to hurt any feelings. But let's hurt some feelings today. Why not? Diddy's feelings are hurt, right? And there's a lot of assholes that are hurt because of Diddy. So we're going to hurt feelings today. Straight up. Don't take it as disrespect or the wrong way. This is just my perspective on this question. And the question that was asked is, who has the most protective custody inmates in the state of California? Who has the most P.C.s? Okay, you hear a lot about P.C. and G.P. And for those of you that are out of state and don't even know what those words mean, P.C. is protective custody. People who have checked in or can't be on a general population yard for whatever reason. Okay, people that find themselves in a precarious situation. Sometimes unjust, sometimes just. Sometimes guys checking in the back of a cop car just because they know they have bad charges or they're scared. And that's just what it is. Some guys can do a very extensive amount of time on a general population yard and it just doesn't work out in their best interest. Whatever or however you get there, you get there. But the question at hand is, who has the most? You know, when you talk about the blacks, there's Kumis, Jama, Crips, Bloods, non-affiliates, Muslims. They got a lot of different groups in the state of California, right? But they are not the deepest on the protected custody yard. And why would they be? Their politics are just a little bit more different than every other group. Now, I'll take it, man. The LA Crips do run a very, very hard program. The Sangres do run a very hard program. And the Kumis, man, are just a little bit more wilder and they do what they do. They wild out a little bit. But they all function under different cars and different programs. Albeit the blacks are together on the same side of the yard. And they share a lot of the same things, a lot of the same exercise equipment, a lot of the same seating areas and designated areas for the brothers, right? But at the same time, that doesn't mean they all fall under the same politics. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. No feelings hurt right here. No added preservatives. Knowledge you can't get in college. If you see a brother on an SNY yard or a protective custody brother, you know it's some serious shit. He fucked up very bad within his own people, or he's got a very, very, very bad case, right? Because there's really no reason for the brothers to go PC up. A lot of them give each other a lot of leeway, man. You know, their black power, their black idealisms, their culture comes before most anything. You know, I understand the gangs, the Crips, the Bloods, you know, they're going to rock the way they rock and they're going to do what they do. And I'm not here to say that they ain't about the business, because they definitely are, right? But with the brothers, man, they will basically give you a little bit of a leeway. They're not as harsh on their people as the Mexicans are and as the whites are, right? You know, they love their people and they show it. But if you fuck up, you fuck up, man. And if there ain't no other place or no other yard for you to go to, you will go to the protective custody yard. But I'm here to tell you, man, there's not very many blacks that are PC. And even when they do go on 50-50 yards, or they do go to those yards, a lot of them get backs. They're still embraced when they get out. They still can go back to their hood. They're shown love. Now, not every hood. I know there's going to be a lot of brothers like Gun. You got the game fucked up. No, I understand. I understand the situation. If you're programming with chirujos, if you're programming with chomos, pedophiles, all this type of shit, then you are who you flock with, right? That's the old saying. But at the end of the day, man, I have seen a lot of brothers, man, that, will give people passes. You know, there's a thing, they don't check paperwork as much as Mexicans do. They check it, just check it differently. Okay? They're not looking for the exact same things a Mexican. When you get checked by a Mexican, your paperwork's being ran, they're looking for anything you've ever done in your whole fucking entire life. The brothers just want to see your charges, what you're in for, if it's good, if it's not. You know, don't get it twisted. There's brothers on the 4-yard, man, that will handle their business right off the top. But you're not going to see very many blacks in protective custody. There are those that have decided for whatever reason they don't want to program or be involved in the shenanigans that do happen on 4 and 3 yards. So they might check in. They're not going to be judged or whatever. They're just doing their program and doing their thing. But that makes everyone on that yard skeptical because there's an idealism that the blacks don't go as hard politically on their people as everyone else. So they're going to be scrutinized, even on those protective custody yards, right? Now, the whites pretty much function like Southerners, like Southsiders, right? They have their own thing going on. You have two different groups. You have Woods, you have skinheads. Okay, the skinheads are a little bit more political. They got a little bit more idealisms when it comes to other ethnicities. They feel how they feel. Now, that doesn't mean all skins are full of hatred and it's a racial thing. They just have their program. We all know that skinheads weren't started out as a racial hate group, period. Those that know the background and the history on the skins know that that's not how it was started or what it was intended to be. But in California and other states within the United States, it kind of took that image, that facade, right? And that's just what it is. Now, the Woods are comprised of whites that are just good old boys, brother, right? Most of the Woods, though, didn't come in hating anyone or on a racial tip. They are just proud to be white and they stick with their own ethnicity because that's the way it is on the California yard. You stick with your own people. Now, once you fall into that function, you will have your program dictated by the higher ups. You will act accordingly. You will act with professionalism, and as a Wood, they're going to do what they do. Is there a lot of Woods in protective custody? There are quite a bit. There are even groups like the BBC, the Brothers by Choice, and other white groups that have formed on the SNY and the protective custody yards for the benefit of their own people. They still stick together. They still have that mentality, and they bring that mentality from general population that if it ain't white, brother, it ain't fucking right. Got a shot of coffee, right? That's just how that goes. So you will see whites on the protective custody yards, absolutely, but they do not have the most numbers. Why? Because they are not the biggest group within the CDC. See, in the California Department of Corrections, whites are actually the minority. Okay, you're not going to see nothing but 30 or 40 Woods or skins on a yard at a particular time. Maybe they might hit a 50 and cap it off there, but you're not going to see a lot of them. Okay, they're probably actually one of the smallest group next to the Northerners and the others that you'll see on a yard, but they are willing to go. One thing about the whites, man, when they're ready to go, they all go. They function, okay? Because they're under the assumption and they're under the authority of an organization that doesn't play, and they know that every man must be accounted for. And basically, man, when it's your people against another people, you have to rock with your people, man. Again, they check paperwork quite extensively. They trip off of a lot of the same things that the Southern Mexicans do, and that's just the way it is, man. Since the youth authority, I've programmed on yards with whites, and that's how it was, man. I've told you guys in spills before, the whites are going to rock with their people. There's going to be some that are with the business and some that ain't. The ones that ain't are going to get weeded out quick, and they're going to get sent packing, and that's just what it is. But just like any other gang in prison, you're going to have dudes that get falsely accused or eradicated or removed for whatever political reasons, whether it was just or unjust, and they find themselves on them protective custody yards, and it just is what it is. But they, again, are not the deepest. They don't have the most P.C.s in California prison. Okay? Now, the Southsiders, or, before we do the Southsiders, do the others. The others, the Polynesians and Asians, they probably have the least, and Native Americans, we'll lump them in there too. These guys probably have the least amount of protective custody inmates in the state of California. And it's because they have the less numbers than anyone else. With Usos, they function to the highest level. It's all about their people, whether they're Crips or they're Bloods on the streets or North or South. Most of them, they go in there and they revert back to their Polynesian people, to their Usos, their Tongans, their Tocos. And that's just what it is, man. And they function hand in hand as the other car with Asians. Okay, now Asians are a different breed. Asians are with the business. I've been told by many, many homeboys, Southerners, Northerners, everything, that the Asians definitely pose a threat. They might not have the numbers, but when one jumps, all jump. They love their gente and their race. The only time that you'll ever see an issue with the Asians on the yard is if a deal goes wrong or if a TRG comes to that yard, man, and the Southerners ain't feeling that. And I know back in the days there was a green light on the TRG, so every time one hit the yard, man, all the Asians had to get off in protection of that guy, or they just fed him to the wolves. But they're not that type of people. They rock for their race, and that's just how it is. You're not going to see a lot of them in protective custody because there's not a lot of shit that happens on general population that would send them packing. There's no reason for them to go. Most Asians in the state of California that are doing time are doing all fucking day. They're all in for murders. They're all in for shootings. they're just in there doing an extensive amount of time, right? So they don't check in quite easily. They got their few little homeboys. They get along. They conduct their business. They're cool with everyone. They're allowed as others to talk to everyone on the yard and conduct business with everyone. So they can't really see themselves falling into a situation where they're all bad. If there are Asians that come in with bad cases or Usos that come in with bad cases, they deal with their own, and them guys are sent packing as well. So the Asians, the Usos, and the Native Americans, you're not going to see very many of them on the SNY yards. Now, when it comes to the Native Americans, they're a very spiritual people. The only time that I see a lot of Native Americans sent packing or removed is because you have guys that try to fake it till they make it. Guys that were gang members in the past on different yards that all of a sudden find their native heritage and now they're Indian. Now they want to put a feather in their head, braid their hair, and wear beads, right? And these type of guys, the Native Americans that are really righteous, that have been doing it, that actually have native blood, don't like these type of guys. And when they figure out that you're just being a Cheyenne, but with blonde hair and blue eyes, or that you're a Southsider or a Northerner in a different yard and you're trying to fake it, they get rid of you. Them guys do get sent packing. Now, I have seen situations where natives got off in defense with the woods. They function hand in hand with the woods a lot of times. And I have seen, you trip out on that, cowboys and Indians, right? And I've seen a lot of times where the natives, man, will drink on the yard and get caught up. One thing about the natives, their money's good on the yard. People like natives on the yard. Their money is always good, right? You want to keep a native in pocket, man, if you're definitely out there doing your thing on a yard in California. But you're not going to see a lot of them on the protective custody yards, a lot of P.C.s, because again, man, they are a group that gets along with everyone. They function and do their spiritual things, their beading, their powwows, their sweat lodges. And so there's really not too many conflict. There might be individual conflict. I've seen one time where there was a native that was trying to play both sides. He was a Southern Hispanic. He was Southerner, and he was over there kind of kicking with his people and try to play both sides. And the Southerners felt some type of way, so they whacked him, and then that kicked it off with the natives because the natives felt like he was one of their people, which he was. He was literally a Native American, but you can't be part of both. In prison, you could have your ethnicity. You could be a black, but a Southsider, you're going to roll with the South. If you're a white and you're a Northerner, you're going to roll with the Northerners. It's just what it is. And if any other group wants that, then they can get that by everybody. It's how it goes down. Now, the Southsiders are the deepest group in prison. Okay, we're going to talk about them in a minute, but we got to get to the P.C.s. Now, there are a lot of P.C.s. Shout out to my P.C.s people that are on P.C. Because for some reason or another, they're not of an understanding. A yard is a yard. Now, don't get it twisted. There are P.C.s that know what's up. P.C.s that are with the business and the program. And again, they have their own rules and regulations, but they function hand in hand with the Southsiders. They don't get their program dictated by the Southsiders. They don't get told what to do. But if something goes down with the P.C.s, the Southsiders are definitely going to have their back in most situations, and vice versa, right? That's where they've chosen to put their allegiance with the Southerners. That's what they do. Now, that doesn't mean they automatically got hatred for Norteños, and there's that beef right there, because it's not. I talked to P.C.s. I was cool with P.C.s. I settled up with P.C.s. It was all good. But you will see a lot of them in the protective custody yards. And why? Because a lot of them don't care where they're put. A lot of them do. And I'm just going to be honest with you. There are a lot of P.C.s that come from Mexico that do catch bad cases. It's the truth. Like I said, I'm not here to hurt your feelings. I love my Mexicano people, but there are a lot that catch bad cases, man. And the situation is just a situation where they're not allowed on the yard. They can't function, especially with Mexican blood in them, and have a weird case on the yard. Their people are going to run their name, and definitely the Southsiders are going to make sure that they're not doing business or around a vato that's in on a weird case. So you will see a lot of fucking P.C.s on the P.C. yards. There will be a lot of them. They have more numbers than I would say the whites as well as the others, and probably just as much as blacks. But that's just the way it is. Now, the Southsiders. The Southsiders are the largest group everywhere. Are they the deepest on the yard? Well, if you compare them in comparison to the blacks, no. You might have 100, 150 Southerners on the yard, and you'll have 300 blacks on the yard. But again, the blacks are fragmented into different groups. So they don't all rock together unless it's a racial riot or unless it's something that involves black and brown or black and white. Then the blacks would come together. But you have the LA Crips, the NCs, the Northern Crips, the Bloods, the Pyrus, the everything, the Kumis, non-affiliates. So they're all fragmented into groups, whereas the Southerners are all one, right? Now, as far as Southsiders, they probably are the second deepest when it comes to protective custody inmates because of their numbers. It's not because they're suckers or they're not, or they're punks. And there's just a lot more of them. And there's a lot of dudes that flip. There's a lot of dudes that, get removed and get put on those yards. And they're considered that whether it was a good removal or not. When you're the deepest group, of course, it's going to look like you have the most protective custody because there's a lot of guys that get washed up. One thing I know about the Southsiders, they're a very treacherous, dangerous group, and they politic within themselves, man. And you'll find a lot of the dudes getting washed up very quickly, whether it's a street beef or something politically inside, or they're up under the wrong person and they fuck up, or that person falls off. So now they're all fucking get, they pay for that. There's a lot of things that go on with the Southsiders, but they probably are the second by number group in the protective custody yards. And they got a lot of protective custody gangs that were started and founded by ex-Southsiders, like the 2-5ers, the Independent Riders, and several other groups. Those are probably the most well-known. Another group is, of course, the Zapatistas, and that's a newer group. They got all these things going on in SNY, and there are going to be a lot of Southerners over there. Do they still claim Southerner? No, they represent where they're from. They're always going to be considered Southsiders by those other people on the yard, but they don't represent that group no more. Once you are no longer in good standings, you are stripped of that title, man, and you just go over there as a vato from down south. And they're able to function on them yards and talk to guys from the Northern California area. They're able to talk to blacks, whites, sell up with whoever they want. That's just the way it is. But by number, there is quite a few ex-Southerners on them yards, protective custody. Now, I would say the number one deepest group is going to be the Norteños, the Northerners, right? And albeit they're not the deepest group in general population, when they go, they go. It's all one, right? Norteños got to stand on their flag homes. They got to keep their shirt off on that yard and handle their business. I've been on yards where there was 2 of us, 3 of us, 6 of us, 8 of us, 80 of us. I've been on yards where, man, we were on the shit end of the stick, or we had the stick and we were beating people with it. I've seen both sides. Okay, and one thing I can say for sure is the Norteño movement is a very structured militant group that is ran to the point where there are a lot of vatos, man, that get in a position of power or status and treat their homeboys like they're not their homeboys. Okay, treat their homeboys worse than they would treat the enemies. And I've seen a lot of people get deboed on, a lot of people get politicked on. There's a lot of people on the SNY side or the other side that have been placed there or put there on bad calls, or just because things as simple as they didn't make their bed or they weren't up to par. Being a Norteño, man, you have to carry yourself to a certain standard, and that's the reason why a lot of people can't hack it. I myself, man, functioned for many, many years as an active Norteño and started to be disillusioned and started to see how a lot of homeboys were getting individualism, homeboy favoritism, and all these different isms pushed on them because guys were from San Jose or Salinas or San Francisco or Oakland or Tulare County or whatever, man. Whatever yard you hit, if you didn't have homeboys, you didn't have status, you didn't have love, man. You were just an enter, and you can be basically abused. It could be all bad. Not saying that all Norteños do that. No, the cause is a beautiful cause, man. And I send mine to the actors that are still putting in their work and doing their thing. I'm just saying, by comparison, man, it's a very structured militant group, and it's hard to maintain on an active yard as a Norteño, man. Not because the other side is going to get at you some type of way. They're going to treat you with respect. Norteños have always fought for social status of equality and have earned that and gained that throughout the system. They're respected. But I will say this, man, within their own people, they're probably, them and the Southerners, the two groups that politic the most within their own. And they get washed up very easily. I've washed homeboys up. I feel that my situation, man, was a situation where, because I exposed the drug usage, man, on the yard, and I felt some type of way, that I was washed up, so I had to do what I had to do. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not crying about it. I don't feel disgruntled. It was actually a blessing in disguise, man, because I was in a situation where I just didn't like the way the yard was leaning anyways. Not because of the enemy or the opposition. I had been on prison yards several times over, and more so was the fact that I kept seeing homeboys get used and abused, and I seen this certain group. There was actually cliquish things going on, man, and I didn't agree with it. But anyways, right? You'll probably see more Norteños, even though there's less on the mainline yards. You'll probably see more of them on the dropout yards, and it's crazy to say that, man, having come from there, and it's not because Norteños are punks or they're scared or or they're less than. It's just that it's a harder program to function up under, man. I've seen motherfuckers, like I said, murdered in Tracy for not taking a shower. You know, I seen someone, assaulted in the county jail with a broom because the homies just didn't like him. Washed him up his whole career. Those guys all ultimately got washed up, and he got washed up as well because, I mean, he did the Wes Watson without really wanting to Wes Watson it. It was just all bad, right? So I would say by the numbers, and again, I'm not here to fucking downplay anyone. We're not even going to talk about the Bulldogs. They are secluded from everyone. There are Bulldogs on the SNY yards. There are Bulldogs on the 50-50 yards in PC, but not as much as any other group because they don't have the numbers like that. But I will say that, you know, by comparison, the numbers, and again, it differentiates from different yards to yard. You know, it could be Southerners over here deeper, Northerners, maybe whites on this yard. Every yard is different. But as far as, you know, Norteños falling off in an alarming rate, there was times when the Norteños were being disillusioned. There was options like the Northern Riders, the New Flowers, and I won't say New Flowers are protective custody group because they're not. They're something totally different. They consider themselves active, but there were other gangs like Capital Punishment out of Sacramento, Sucker Freeze, just different groups, right, that sprung up from the ashes on the SNY side that were taking in disillusioned Norteños, man, and people that fell off in back of cop cars and people that, you know, went over there, were disgruntled, like Dubs would say, a disgruntled employee that actually went to an SNY yard and joined some of these groups, man. It just is what it is, man. By the sheer numbers, that's just being real, no sugarcoating, and that's the video for the day. I hope I answered that question. Who has the most protective custody? Now, there's going to be other people that say, no. These people are deeper. They're deeper. Look, I'm just saying what I've seen and what I know. It's up to you. The gun.